I'm very excited to be kicking off this series on artificial intelligence or AI for education. And today is actually the first in a 4-part series, which I'll get into in just a few moments. But what we're doing here today is we're just going to talk about artificial intelligence. What is it? Why is it important? There has been a lot of buzz around artificial intelligence in education. So let's explore it together and let's talk about the possibilities together. I'm Victoria Thompson. I was an educator. I was also an instructional coach. I work at Microsoft now. My job is that I'm a customer success account manager, or CSAM. Prior to that, I was an education industry executive. So I've had 2 different roles at Microsoft. Love it. But my whole career has really been in education. And even at Microsoft, I'm at Microsoft Education, working with schools and school districts, helping them get the technology, tools, and resources that they need. And a big topic, of course, that I've also been coming up on with a lot of the things I've been doing with my schools has been artificial intelligence. People want to know what this is. That way they can bring it to the students and the educators as well. If any of you are involved with ISTE, so this is International Society for Technology and Education, I won an award. I have it right next to me, not just because I'm giving this session right now, but because this is about to go up on this wall. So I won top 20 to watch, which is really exciting. As I mentioned, as education, like I've always been a part of it. I started teaching 5th and 6th grade math and science, went into instructional coaching, then went into STEM coaching and IT. I've always been in the ed tech and the education space. This is actually the first in a 4-part series. So you can check out the website for Special Education Technology Center for some more details. The lovely folks out of SETC have put this together with us. And right now we're on part 1. So this is Introduction to Artificial Intelligence or AI in Education. Part 2 is Artificial Intelligence. Is it cheating? Right? This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. What's cheating when it comes to AI, and what do students use, and also what do we use to utilize artificial intelligence in our work, and what's ethical and what's not. So that's what that whole session is all about. Part 3, we are going to be talking about using artificial intelligence or AI for lesson planning, which is another one of my favorite topics. I love the cheating one because we really get down into the ethics, but the lesson planning one is really fun too because we get to take a look at how AI can work for us as educators. And then if you're a school leader, maybe a principal, somebody from district, an instructional coach, we're also going to be talking about in part 4, using artificial intelligence or AI to drive those educational outcomes. So be sure that you register, y'all, because today is part 1 of a 4-part series. All right, so that's enough about the nitty-gritty logistics. Let's talk now a little bit about what exactly is this thing called artificial intelligence. I'd say over the last 1.5 to 2 years, this is the #1 question I get when I go to schools, when I'm at school board meetings, when I'm working alongside the different schools and universities that I have at my job at Microsoft. And even in my neighborhood, right? I volunteer at the local schools down the road all the time. I'm going for book night this evening, right? Because I'm 3 hours ahead of y'all. So after this, I'm going to book night and I'm going to go to the Scholastic Fair. Even with parents, I get this question all the time. What is artificial intelligence? And the answer that I always like to give, it's kind of twofold, because there's artificial intelligence all up, and then there's artificial intelligence in education. So I always like to start first with all up. If somebody were to come to me and say, Victoria, what's artificial intelligence? My answer is always this. Artificial intelligence, or AI, I'm going to call it AI for the purpose of this, is the ability of a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks that we would commonly associate with human beings. The picture that I have here, I chose very purposely. You can see that it's a robot that kind of looks like a human being, and they're doing math. If you take a look, there's logarithms, there's different types of math problems like algebraic reasoning. There's also a little bit of chemistry in there as well. There's also some spatial reasoning with cones. There's area, there's surface area, there's volume. There's a little bit of everything going on there. And when I think about artificial intelligence, my mind does go to this picture, because I wouldn't necessarily think of a robot or something digital to do things that I would do as a human being. I mentioned that I live in Florida, very close to Disney World. And if you can tell by my background, I'm a very big Disney Parks fan. When I think about robots, I think of going into Carousel of Progress and seeing the audio animatronics. I think about going into the Enchanted Tiki Room and hearing the birds sing, right? And they're not real birds and they're not real people, but they're doing things and making lifelike movements like an actual person or an actual animal would be there. I would think of that as like phase one. And that's not necessarily artificial intelligence because they're just parroting things back, right? They have voice boxes and things like that. Step two is artificial intelligence. So if I go to Carousel of Progress, or if I go into the Enchanted Tiki Room, and instead of it being like a playback that's been on a loop since the 1950s, I'm actually interacting with this thing the way that I would interact with a normal human being. They are performing tasks on site the way that we could perform tasks as human beings. So this is where some of the discomfort comes in, because it kind of is unique to take a look at this and be like, oh, a computer-controlled robot can do things that I can do as a human being. They could do math, they can do science, they can respond back to you. This is what artificial intelligence is all about, y'all. So this is the ability of a digital computer, or like I mentioned, a computer-controlled robot, to perform tasks that are associated with what we do as human beings. Now, if I want to take this one step further, let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence for education. So I mentioned that I'd like to say this in two different parts. If AI has the capability to do things that we can do as human beings, in theory, what that means is that AI does have the potential to address some of the biggest topics in education today and also help us innovate our teaching and our learning practices. So this can refer to a lot of different things, but the three that came to mind for me immediately: working with students who are English language learners, number one. Number two, working with students who may be neurodivergent and might need a little bit of that support in that arena. And then number three, you may also have students that need support in other areas, and maybe they don't have an IEP, they don't have a 504, maybe they're a little bit quieter, they're not self-advocating, right? Because self-advocacy is a learned skill. So sometimes they need support and they don't really know where to go. Artificial intelligence can really be a wonderful, wonderful gateway for that. And we're going to hop into all the bits and pieces soon. But before we do, let's just demystify this a little bit more, because we've got the opportunity and the capability, but sometimes people just straight up don't know how AI can benefit them. So here are some facts and figures. Nearly 77% of devices today use AI technology in one form or another. This includes your phones, your computers, your televisions, and even other devices. So I'll tell y'all a story. I just got this new phone. If you've been with the Special Education Technology Center for a while, you know that I used to have an iPhone 8. I just recently upgraded because I ran a marathon and my group was terrified. They couldn't find me because my battery was going to die. So I have this brand new iPhone 14 now, which is wonderful. But something really cool about my new phone that I didn't have on my old phone is when I speak into my phone, it actually records what I'm saying. So very similar to dictate or speech to text or any of those like dragon type things. I can talk into my phone and it predicts what I'm saying, and then I can send it off to my friends. I got texts from two friends right now because right now they're in Orlando and we're all going to get dinner tomorrow. But when I take a look at that, that's artificial intelligence. I am utilizing my voice within the capability of my device to move things forward. I'm creating messages and I'm sending them off. I also think about how if we're utilizing our televisions as well, I found out the other day, and again, I'm a very techie person. I did not know that my television, I could speak into the remote. And when I speak into the remote, I can say, okay, YouTube, play like this radio show, and it will do it. I can say, play Peyton Place, and it will do it. Peyton Place is like an old school soap opera, which I love, but I can go ahead and talk into my device and it will go ahead and it will do it. That's artificial intelligence, because what would I normally do, right? If we're thinking about artificial intelligence as a way to kind of think about humans and the way that they interact, the way that I would do it is I would search Peyton Place on my TV and I would press play. Or if I'm typing on my phone, I would just type and I would press send. What the artificial intelligence does is it takes what we're doing and it does it for us. I also learned pretty recently, and this is something I feel like I subconsciously knew because a lot of the AI bots that I interact with are female, but most AI bots are coded as female. Think about Siri, think about OK Google, think about Cortana. They're all female for the most part. Now you can modify and adjust, but like even in my GPS, whenever I go from point A to point B, like from my house to a store down the street, my GPS is a woman. And I have to change it in order to get a male voice or a different type of voice, right? So most AI bots are coded as female. And the reasoning behind that is a lot of the technology folks believe that it's more like a warmth in the voice, right? It brings like a warmth element to what's going on here. On top of that, we also have Siri, which is also on phones, iPhones in particular, and half of United States mobile users use voice search every single day. And I just did this today too. I brought up, hey, when does this restaurant close? Hey, when does this place open, right? I can talk into my device and I can figure out when something is going to happen versus taking that time to type it in. And I'll say this, ever since I got this phone, because I've had the dictate on all my devices, my phone was the last holdout, but it just cuts down on that time. And it's cool, right? It's so cool to have. Now, when we also think about AI in the long term, I think it's important to call out that research does estimate that AI is going to create around 97 million jobs. I'm thinking long-term for our students, that's a lot of opportunity. That's a lot of awesomeness that can come with teaching kids and also teaching ourselves how to use this thing. But 77% of people are concerned that artificial intelligence is really going to cause some job loss in the next year. Me specifically in the tech sector, I have seen this. We've had consistent layoffs since January of 2023. It is now September of 2023 by the time of me saying this. We have lost jobs to a lot of different things, but also we've also gained jobs because of artificial intelligence. So there's awesome things that can happen here. We just have to figure out how to navigate all of that. And riffing off of this, I got all of these statistics from Forbes Advisor, and I can drop the link into the chat towards the end of this. But I also wanted to include this graph because I think it's very exciting. The most popular AI usages or uses, whatever you want to call it, include things like responding to messages, answering financial questions. I use my chatbot on my bank app, right? Things like planning a travel itinerary, things like crafting an email, prepping for a job interview, writing a social media post. These are all things that we utilize AI without even dipping into the magic of what it can do in the classroom. So I want y'all to take a look at this graph, and then I'd love to hear from y'all in the chat. How do you use artificial intelligence in your roles? Because I can tell you, I've done all of these. I was just talking about how I respond to my friends via like the speech to text, and that's artificial intelligence. I've crafted an email with the ghostwriting sometimes, right? Because sometimes when you go into Gmail or Outlook, it automatically goes there. That's artificial intelligence. All right. I see some goodness in the chat. Maps, Find My Phone. Oh, I use Find My Phone all the time. I had to use it today. My phone was in my house. I didn't even know where it was. Email, I see all of them. Speech to text, crafting an email. I've done all of those also. I've also used ChatGPT to help write emails, look up meals. Ooh, that sounds We're going to talk about that, Katie. That sounds fun. I use ChatGPT for a job cover letter. Nice. Yes, all of these really neat things can be utilized with our students and also with ourselves, as well as just a way to get started. And today I'm going to model for you what I did recently. I was working on a conference proposal and I was really just stuck. And I'm like, okay, I need ideas. ChatGPT didn't write it for me, but it did give a way for me to begin and start. And ChatGPT is one of the ones that gets a lot of, again, attention and buzz right now. So I will be covering that as well. All right, but I see that we all pretty much utilize AI to a degree. I see creative professional development titles. I like that too. Very, very cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how AI can actually be utilized in education. So when I think about AI in education, I gave you all the use cases, but really this is about how we can use AI to enhance teaching and learning practices. They can help to address some of our biggest challenges in education, and they can promote what I refer to as a student's holistic development. We're looking at the whole child, not just what we're doing in this classroom right now during this time, but what we can do all up. So AI can help educators and students in a lot of ways, and I can show you better than I can tell you. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And what I'm going to do right now is begin to hop over to another screen. And in this screen, what we're going to do is really just walk through different ways that we can utilize AI for good in the classroom and work alongside each other. All right, and I'm going to start first with our buddy ChatGPT. I'm going to start first with ChatGPT once again because this has gotten a lot of buzz. However, with ChatGPT, there's a lot of possibilities here. If you've never utilized ChatGPT and you're thinking, what is she talking about? I'm going to show you. So sharing my screen right now, y'all should all be able to see it. I am at chat.openai.com. So this is where you get there. So chat.openai.com. If you also go to your regular search engine and you type in ChatGPT, you can find it there too. There's a couple of things I want to point out. The first is that ChatGPT is in what is referred to as beta testing. Beta testing means that there is a free version, which is GPT 3.5. This is available to people who are free or plus users. I am free. If you've been around with me a couple times in these sessions, you know if it ain't free, it ain't me. So I always like to do the free version. There's also GPT-4. So this is exclusively to plus users. I am not a plus user. I always like to do the free version of things. That way I can model and adjust because sometimes it's just really expensive to have a subscription, and I try to go free whenever I can. So right now I am in ChatGPT. You can see all these things down here that I have already reviewed for in the past. I had to give feedback on something for an equity panel and I was stuck. There's that right there. I was working on some tips for conference preparation. It's there right there. There's also some different chats, and you'll also see that it's via the month too. We can go all the way down to March, which is where I began. Down here, you can see that you can write a message. You can explain options trading, finance. You can recommend a dish, or you can plan a trip. So these are 4 different things that they're just kind of giving you if you want to get started. So let's say that I want to write a message for a friend who is very excited that she just got a new job. That's the prompt. Again, this is just me thinking out loud. I also have a friend that just got a new job and I'm very excited for her. So if I were to send her a message, but I'm stuck, I might type this into ChatGPT, and here's what ChatGPT says. Boom. The first thing I want to point out is this was wicked fast, right? It happened within maybe 3 to 4 seconds. The second thing is you'll notice it took my prompt and it wrote something out. I just heard the fantastic news. Congratulations on landing your new job. Couldn't be happier for you. Hard work, dedication, talent paid off. Like, this is something I would say to a friend. I can only imagine the excitement and anticipation you might be feeling right now. This is just the beginning of an incredible journey. Congratulations. You deserve all the success and happiness that comes your way. Warmest wishes, your name, right? Victoria. So this could be a really nice template that you could give to somebody. Now, something else I also like to do is, this is not academic, right? So let's say that if I want to send a message or create something new, Let's say that I'm not too happy with this message for the friend, so I'm going to regenerate. And here we go. So you'll notice we have a brand new response. It's similar, but not the same. So we've got this response. You'll see that it's like, please let me know we can celebrate, which again is also something I would say. I'm ready to raise a glass and toast, also something I would say. Congratulations on this well-deserved accomplishment. I'm very proud of you. Cheers, your name. Down here, you can also say, was this response better or worse? I say it was better. Because it was, in my opinion. But what you can do is you can continue to generate these responses. Now, let's say that I'm a student and you're teaching 8th grade science, and maybe the standard is write a report on Jupiter. So I might say, if I'm a kid, I might say, what is a rough outline for a science report on the planet of Jupiter? I would press send, and here we go. Now, this is what freaks educators out, and it freaked me out the first time that I saw it, I'm not going to lie. And the reason why is because this is thorough, right? If I take a look here at artificial intelligence, this is something that a student might spend 45 minutes writing down, and ChatGPT just did it in less than 1 minute. So the rough outline is this. Now, you'll notice what the ChatGPT says, though, is that here's a rough outline you can use as a starting point. I think that is where we need to begin. This is not everything. This is a starting point. So you'll notice that it's about Jupiter, right? We have the introduction, background information, physical characteristics, atmosphere, moons, rings, blah, blah, blah. But if I'm taking a look here, this doesn't really give all the ins and outs of Jupiter. It just kind of lets students figure out where to go from here. And if a kid were to turn this into us as a final product, I don't think that we failed, but we'd send it back, right? We'd be like, this is not a paper. This is not a research paper. This is an outline. So what we need you to do is just look at this a little bit deeper. Think about this a little bit deeper. Another way that I like to look at ChatGPT with the students that I teach, because I do have like an online presence, is it's called the biography challenge. I don't know if any of you have done this before, but I do highly recommend it. If you have a Facebook, a Twitter, or a LinkedIn, what you can do is you can type in your name, your social media handles, and say, write a biography. This is where I usually begin with educators and students, because if we're nervous about AI and how AI is going to impact us, you'll notice that artificial intelligence knows a lot, but it doesn't know everything. So I'm going to type in Victoria Thompson at Victoria the Tech, which is my Twitter handle, biography. And here we go. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it says that it doesn't know me. Thompson, Victoria the Tech bio. Let's try this. If it can't do it right now, that's okay, because I did one before and it was saved. Okay. Looks like it is being challenged a little bit, but that's okay, because here was mine from before. So I did this in about March, and I started doing the biography challenge. You'll notice how it says biography for Victoria Thompson at Victoria the Tech on Twitter. Again, that's me. So you'll see that it wrote a pretty okay biography about myself. It's got my Twitter handle. It's got that I'm a tech expert. It's got that I've been recognized as one of the top 100 women in tech, which is technically true, but also not the exact award. It was top 20, not top 100. So you'll notice that there's already discrepancies, right? That I've got experience in the tech industry. I deliver keynotes. I'm a writer. I'm involved in various community organizations. So you'll notice this is very vague, right? Like if a kid were to turn this into me, if they were like, okay, we're going to do a project on Victoria Thompson, and if they were to turn it in, I wouldn't fail them, but I would send it back, because there's not a lot of detail here. So ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, again, it can be a good place to start, get those juices flowing. And it's also a good springboard for kids to go and say, okay, here's what I can do next. So again, you can type in anything in a ChatGPT, but I do recommend, if you do have a presence online, doing that biography challenge. And again, what I did for myself right here, it's just that biography for Victoria Thompson on Twitter. I could have done that for LinkedIn. I could have done that for, and really any website, but I chose Twitter this time. So this is if I were to just kind of start from scratch. Let's say that I want to utilize just different types of artificial intelligence. And I mentioned that I love speech to text. So I'm going to go ahead and showcase that right now. So right now I am in OneNote. This is where I keep, as you can see, all of my things between my daily logs, my math assessments, ways that I'm communicating with families and students, read alouds that I do with students. I do a little bit of everything here. So let's name this reflection. The reason why I do want to name this reflection is because a lot of the times when I work with students, we do reflections either in the beginning of the class period or towards the end of the class period. And I do find that putting pen to paper or pencil to paper for a lot of the students I work with can be a challenge. And it's not because they don't want to do it. They just don't like to do it. So what I find is that the artificial intelligence with that speech to text works wonders. So let's say that maybe the reflection for today is, I've got math on the brain. So I'm going to say, tell me how you know that parallel lines are different from perpendicular lines. Now, if I'm working with a student who, again, struggles to put pencil to paper or pen to paper, this could be 45 minutes of struggle. However, if they use speech to text, they might be better oral readers and also people who are really interested in speaking out loud. So I've worked with kids where 45 minutes of struggle turns into 1 minute of easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. So here's what we do. So if the prompt is, tell me the difference between parallel, perpendicular lines, what we would do is we would select this dictate button. Dictate is very similar to speech to text, Dragon, all of those other apps. But it is automatically embedded within OneNote, which is outstanding. So I'm going to press dictate. The difference between parallel lines and perpendicular lines is that parallel lines never touch and perpendicular lines intersect at a 90-degree angle. All right, I'm going to make this nice and big for us. That way we can see. Now, again, this is my adult language, right? Like if a kid were to do this, they might not say intersect or things like that. But here is what I have here. So the difference between parallel lines and perpendicular lines, parallel lines never touch, perpendicular lines intersect at a 90-degree angle. Now, if a kid were to give this to us, we wouldn't fail them, but we'd send it back. And the reason why is because there's no punctuation. The great thing about speech to text and artificial intelligence is that in a lot of these functions, they've already thought of this for us. So we're going to do this again. What is the difference between parallel and perpendicular lines? The difference between parallel lines and perpendicular lines, comma, is that parallel lines never touch, exclamation point, and, comma, perpendicular lines intersect at a 90-degree angle, period. Boom. That's artificial intelligence, y'all. So this 45-minute struggle, again, working with students just became something that happened within the course of a minute. And this doesn't happen overnight. I do want to say that. The first time I started working with kids on this, they just get so excited to kind of have everything out there that it does take time to teach. Hey, we can say comma, we can say exclamation point, we can speak into the device. But when we do it, it's magic. And again, artificial intelligence is doing the work of a scribe, right? Or maybe a student taking down those notes. So that's super cool. Something else really cool within OneNote is that I can also toss this into Immersive Reader. I'm not going to go too deep into Immersive Reader because I have shared this before in previous webinars. However, I do want to point out the translate feature because this is wonderful. So let's say that I've got a student, right now it's on Mongolian. I was working with a student who speaks Mongolian not too long ago. But let's say that we want, let's do Portuguese. I just saw Portuguese. There we go. Let's do Portuguese. I can translate by my document. So I've got my Portuguese over here. I've got my original over here. which is wonderful. You'll notice that I've also got the different highlights for nouns and verbs and adjectives. I do this with kids all the time. That way they can highlight parts of speech. Down here, if you want to press play, it can have it read aloud in both the original English and in the Portuguese. And if I wanted to, then I can receive targeted feedback when I speak into the device, basically about, hey, what can I work on? So I'll showcase that for you right now. I'm going to very purposely not say words correctly here. So here we go. It's going to say start reading. 3, 2, 1. The direction between perfect lines and parallel lines is that perfect lines never touch and plain lines interject at a 90-degree angle. All right. So I have my reading report here. Again, this is artificial intelligence. If I were a teacher, I would have to pull a kid to the back of the class and do the running record and get all that information. But now this is my reading report. I've got my accuracy. I've got the correct words around per minute. I only read for 15 seconds, but it can estimate. And then I've also got 5 words to practice. And with these 5 words, you'll notice I've got and, intersect.
Practice makes progress.
Oh, I'm gonna mute that. And, intersect, difference, touch, and between. I have my OneNote set on a very enthusiastic voice whenever I want to do something, so that's why I muted that. But you'll see that with Reading Coach, what I can do is I can practice growing my skills, and I can have this read out loud. Sometimes there's a picture going along with it. Again, these are all things we would do in our classroom, but artificial intelligence is making this simpler. Something else I really want to show off is the artificial intelligence within forms. There's a lot of different forms. I'm using Microsoft Forms right now for the math capabilities. So again, this is the reason why I'm doing it. There's also all these capabilities in other forms as well. But for math, I am definitely a Microsoft girl, and you're going to see the reason why. So I'm going to label this, let's say, math quiz. All right, going to add a new question right here. And I'm also going to make this bigger for us. That way we can see. And let's say that I want this to be a multiple choice question. I'm going to turn on math. So for my equation, what I can do, you'll see I've got everything here up to calculus. It even has logarithms and matrices. Let's say that right now, though, I really just want to focus on 2-step equations. So let's say I want I've been doing math all day, so I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? So let's do 3x plus 12. All right. So for my options, or actually, let me go ahead and fix this because this is factoring right now. So I'm going to go back. 3x plus 12 equals, let's do 30. Suppose 30. All right, so x does equal 6 if I'm kind of taking a look at this. So what I'm going to do is add all these options. And you'll notice that when I did that, I didn't have to come up with the answer. All I had to do is come up with the problem. So what I would do is I would subtract 12 from both sides, and then I would divide by 3. X equals 6. All right, if I wanted to go ahead and add a new question, so you'll notice I've now got all of these lovely questions that are here that are, again, based off of my artificial intelligence. So I'm going to add them all. And that's my warm-up. I didn't really have to think. All I did was come up with one question, and this would be my math warm-up for the day. So again, artificial intelligence works for us in a way that makes sense for how we work alongside students and also what we want to do with them. So it's cool, right? I showed y'all the immersive reader and also the dictate. We have the chat GPT. We can do things with quizzes. A lot of y'all have said that you've utilized this via email as well. So when we think about how we can actually vet this, we have some questions, because as with every tech tool, we don't just want to utilize tech tools for tech tools' sake. We want to make sure that we're getting started properly, and also ways that we can utilize this with our students and also with the families too. So I'm going to share my screen one more time because I'm switching to just kind of getting started and what's next. So when I think about getting started with artificial intelligence in education, the first thing that comes to mind is us. It's not the kids. It's not our school community. It's us. And sometimes when I say that, people give me like a little bit of a quizzical look because, of course, we're always thinking about students. But as the educators, we're kind of the first ones to bring these tools to light. And we have a very unique opportunity to do that together. So you as the educator can really begin to explore different types of tools and technologies first. So that's how you can really get started. Also, when we dive in and before we work with our students and colleagues, let's just explore, right? That is the best way that I can describe it, explore. And then also, an alternative is for everybody to explore together. Sometimes when we do this alone, it can be kind of scary. When we explore together, we can do some really fun things. And then also, my advice is just to always create a checklist of sorts regarding how you would like to utilize artificial intelligence. I see in the chat, can you please give another example of quiz writing? I will in just a second. And ironically, or maybe we're on the same wavelength, that's what I'm going to show y'all with the checklist first. So I'm going to transition to that because I want to make sure that y'all walk away with something, right? Because if you're just kind of starting with this and you're not really sure where to begin, here's the checklist that I actually utilize whenever I come across something AI related. And I'm like, okay, where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I do this? Here is the checklist that I've created and the one that I utilize. So I'm going to stop sharing this one more time. And we are going to hop on over to my AI tools checklist. So I have two. I have one for educators and I also have one for students. Why do I have one for students? Because they're the ones, for the most part, who are going to be utilizing these tools. And it's important to just kind of see what the kids are doing and also how they feel about it. So here is my AI technology tools checklist. So you'll notice that there's a couple different things going on here. There's our indicators. We have kind of like the middle, low, high, and then we also have the comments. I'm going to talk about the middle, low, high first. I like to rate my things when it comes to tech tools and vetting those tools on a scale of 1 to 3. My personal reason is because anything more than that for me, it just gets way too ambiguous. It's like, even for me as an adult, I don't like going to Disney World and then coming back and getting a survey that's like, on your scale of like 1 to 10, rate your visit to, or like rate your visit to Walt Disney World. And I'm like, okay, well, what is the difference between a 7 and an 8? Or like a 4 to a 5. So like, even for me as an adult, it gets confusing. I find that with students, it gets even more confusing, especially if you work with younger kids, because they will be asking questions. So 1 to 3 just keeps it nice and simple. 1 is the lowest. So that is like, hey, I don't like it, not a fan. 2 is smack dab in the middle. So 2 means, it's okay. And then 3 means, I really like it, I want to implement this. So that's kind of like the indicators that we utilize, or kind of like the scoring that we utilize rather. Off to the right-hand side, there are comments. So if there's anybody that wants to make a comment or has any pressing words they'd like to say about something, they're located over there. And then we also do have our indicators off to the left-hand side. The indicators, think of them as kind of like the indicators for curriculum, but for tech. Do these tools align with student outcomes? Is diverse content not gatekept by a paywall or lock? I'm talking speech to text, translating features, all the things that help our students succeed. Again, if it ain't free, it ain't me. So I want to make sure that I've got those things. Does the tool provide a way for you to deliver content to your students more efficiently? Does it provide a wide array of identity? Things like communicating and expressing themselves. That's kind of what we look for. Does it provide a way for you to work with your students and also save time for you and your kids? So these are things that I really like to think of whenever I'm here. And when I think identity, I'm not necessarily just thinking about race or gender. I'm thinking, if this kid has a 504 and there's an accommodation for read aloud, but he doesn't really want to be read aloud to because he feels self-conscious, is there a read aloud or maybe a playback feature? That way he feels included, right? So it's all about inclusion and making sure that students feel good in that space. Then once I go down here to students, it's basically kind of the same, right? Does it provide an opportunity for students to present what they know in different ways? Does it have, again, a diverse array of identity? Does it provide accessibility features? Can the students create themselves or communicate rather clearly and express themselves creatively? These are all really important things for kids. And AI does give the capability to do that. As you've seen, right? We did the speech to text. You could see that there's translation features. They can go to ChatGPT and get an outline. These are, again, all things that are important to kids. We just got to make it happen for them. So when I give this to students, I ask for them to look at it through the lens of not necessarily being a teacher, but just being a kid. Do you like this? Do you like using this? And if you don't, then let's find a way to either give feedback and make it better, or we can figure out something else. So you'll see that we've got high, middle, and low. Same for the kids as it is for the adults. Again, because for me, anything more than 3 just gets way too subjective. So we do 1 to 3. And then there's also a section for the kids for comments as well. So here's what we actually did not too long ago. I said I was going to talk about quiz writing, so I am. And we utilized forms to make a quiz. And the way that we utilized this was not for multiple choice. It was actually for open-ended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new form, and I'm going to make a new quiz. Okay, everything's showing up now. Just going to make it a little bit bigger for us, and there we go. So let's say that I want this to be a quiz. I had math on the brain earlier. I'm going to shift a little bit to humanities. Let's call this World War II History. All right. Let's add some text. Now you'll see that some of this coming up here, these are things that I already did with some other folks. I run a pre-service educator program for educators out of my undergrad alma mater, College Charleston, but I do think it's important for kids to write down their name, right? So that's something I can select. They're not going to the College of Charleston, but I do want to know their name. So let's add that. What's your name? Then I can also add, what is your email address? This is always nice to have for students because sometimes if they have questions and they want private feedback, you can just add it in there. And then if I want to go ahead and add something new, I can get started. So I might say something like, like brush up on my World War II history, but when or where is Pearl Harbor? All right. So for my options, you'll notice it doesn't come up as easily as some of the other ones, but we can say things like Hawaii, we can say Delaware. There we go. But you'll also notice down here, it's giving me some options, right? So as I type in states, it'll go ahead and bring it up. So Pearl Harbor happened in Hawaii, check. Then I can go ahead and I can add another option if I want to. I know this is a World War II, but I'm going to go back to math for just a second. Let's do multiple choice again. And we'll say Libby was 13 when World War II ended. How old would she be now? So what I would do is I would turn on math, enter my equation, and I could, again, just type in anything. But what would happen is everything would show up right here, which is really, really cool. On top of that, too, if I were to add something new, so again, I'm just going to kind of default to math. And let's say that my equation, let's say it's like 3 times 6. Then let's go ahead and say, okay. And once again, these are where the options come up. So 18 is my answer, and I can go ahead and select it. And because I don't like the right answer being the first one, I can go ahead and I can move it around a little bit. So that's really cool with quiz writing. And what we did was we utilized this checklist to be like, do you understand how to use forms? Does it give you the opportunity to showcase what you know? If you don't, what can we do to make it a more pleasurable experience for you? So here's also what we did here. If I were to go back and let's say that I'm adding a new question, let's say that it's a text question, and my question is, please, or rather explain the difference between parallel lines and perpendicular lines. All right, I'm going to add some correct answers. Now, what I'm going to do here is I can go through, my math is going to be off, and for my answer, I can say parallel lines don't touch. Can add that as a correct answer. I can say perpendicular lines intersect at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to go ahead and add that too. So what it will do is that the artificial intelligence will pick up on these keywords and begin to grade for you, even if it's not a multiple choice question. So I think of all the times I would be sitting with my students, we'd have to go over all these essays and everything. This is all now done on forms through the artificial intelligence, which is really, really cool. Now, obviously, we want feedback, right? So the feedback that I received was, hey, if we want to translate this into a different language, how do we do that? Well, the really cool thing about forms is that they've already got it figured out for you. So what I would do, I'm going to put this into preview mode for us. That way we can all see it. We have these 3 dots up here. And the really cool thing about these 3 dots is that it's also got my very fun buddy, Immersive Reader. So when I go to Immersive Reader, what I can do is, let's say it's where is Pearl Harbor, and I've got this, right? So this right now is in English. I can go to my text preferences, and I can put this in Portuguese. And here we go. So if I've got a student that might be challenged with the English in the text, they can just hop on over and we can have some fun in the translation feature. So that was some feedback, awesome feedback from students, and we were able to all make it work. Now, one of the things that we did was we really wanted feedback, not only from students, but also from educators. I found that with artificial intelligence, the kids just wanted to talk, which they always do. But for our educators and our school leaders, we really wanted a paper trail. So what we did was we created this checklist and also the reflection of it as well. So what student outcomes were achieved? Was the tool simple for students to utilize in the classroom? Does this offer any advantages to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? And would you use this again? Why or why not? Boom, 4 simple questions. And then from there, we can kickstart a conversation about utilizing artificial intelligence in the classroom and also what we can do to help each other in this AI journey together. So when I think about artificial intelligence and basically how we utilize it and demystifying it, the best way that I can describe it is that we just have to think about how we want to go through this and utilize it. So I talked a little bit earlier just about being started, or rather getting started. I want to reiterate that for you as the educator, you can really begin to explore these tools and these technologies first. It is so neat for us to dive in before we even begin to work with our students and our colleagues and bring these awesome ideas to light. You can also explore together, which again, that's kind of how and why I created that checklist. We were all utilizing different tools and we knew that we had greatness going on, but we didn't know what we all were doing. So it's really cool to explore together and also utilize a checklist of sorts to see what you can do as a team, or maybe even just as an individual if you're starting small, to get students from point A to point B. And also think about how you just want to utilize artificial intelligence in the classroom and evaluate the efficiency of that tool and how you really want to get started with AI. So with that being said, I definitely want to open it up for questions or anything that y'all might have for me. Before I turn it back over to Sue and the awesome folks at the Special Ed Tech Center, here's all my contact information in case you do have any questions. So this is my personal email. It's my Gmail. It's my full name. So I'm never going to get rid of it because I feel like if I get rid of it, someone else is going to take it. so it is Victoria Rose Thompson at gmail.com. I am on Twitter at Victoria the Tech. And then my LinkedIn is right here. Once again, it is my full name, linkedin.com/Victoria Rose Thompson. And then on top of that, just wanted to throw out one more time that we do have, again, this is the first in a 4-part series. So we just completed our introduction to artificial intelligence. Next up, we are going to be talking about the ethics in artificial intelligence, AKA, is this cheating? Then we are going to go into using artificial intelligence for lesson planning for educators. And then for school leaders, coaches, educators, everybody, we are going to be talking about using artificial intelligence to drive educational outcomes.